Melissa Elizabeth Lucio was born on June 18 in 1968 in Lubbock, Texas. Lucio's father died when she was just a baby. When Lucio was 4 years old, her mother moved her children to Rio Grande Valley. Lucio's mother moved a boyfriend in not long after moving. At the age of 7, Lucio began being abused in ways no child should ever be subjected to. Lucio dropped out of high school, and married at the age of 16 to get away from the continued abuse. She married Guadalupe Lucio. He moved Lucio far from her family to Houston. By the time she was 23, she had 5 children with him. Guadalupe was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and physically abused Lucio. Guadalupe would eventually abandon his wife and 5 children. The couple divorced and she began dating Robert Alvarez. The two married, and she had a total of 7 children with Alvarez. However, life with Alvarez wasn't much better. Court documents show that he was abusive to her. Mariah Alvarez was born in September of 2004. She was the 12th child born to Lucio, and the 7th to Alvarez and Lucio. However, Child Protective Services investigated Lucio on prior allegations of child neglect. It was determined that Lucio would leave her younger children in the care of her other teenage children. After Maria was born, she tested positive for drugs, and all of her children were placed in foster care. Her older children moved to Houston to live with their father, Guadalupe Lucio. Lucio worked hard to get her children back. She got a job and stayed off drugs, and eventually the family was back together by 2006. Lucio struggled to financially provide for her increasingly large family. Sometimes she even had to feed her children at soup kitchens. She worked part-time as a home health aide for a while, and eventually began working as a janitor. She submitted regularly to weekly drug tests. Between 1994 and 2007, the family would move 26 times due to not being able to pay the rent or other bills. At times, the family used a neighbor's water hose to fill up a trash can with water to wash dishes and take baths. The family lived in an apartment in Harlington, Texas. Harlington is a small city not far from the Mexican border. On February 17 in 2007, emergency services were called to Lucio's home. 2-year-old Mariah was found unresponsive and she was not breathing. When the ambulance arrived, they discovered the child laying on her back, and unattended in the middle of the floor. First responders attempted to resuscitate Mariah, and rushed her to the nearest hospital. At the Harlingen Hospital, the doctor attempted to revive the child, but those efforts were unsuccessful. Mariah was pronounced dead at only 2 years of age. According to Lucio, Mariah had fallen down the stairs 2 days earlier while they were moving into a new apartment. She claimed she was helping her older children get ready for school when Mariah unlocked a screen door, and wandered outside the apartment and fell down the steep flight of stairs leading to her apartment. She said she found her at the bottom of the stairs crying with her lip bleeding. She said she didn't appear seriously injured, so she didn't take her to the doctor. She said she seemed fine, but Mariah began sleeping a lot and wasn't eating. During the autopsy, it was determined that Mariah's arm had been broken up to 7 weeks before her death, and she had a head injury, bruised kidneys, lungs, and her spinal cord was damaged. She had scattered bruising, a bite mark on her back, and patches of her hair had been pulled out. After Mariah died, Lucio was questioned for hours by Texas Ranger Victor Escalon without any lawyer. She was not allowed food or water during the interrogation.
I first saw you in there, I knew something was wrong. You know something is wrong.
No, sir, I don't.
You know something is wrong.
No, sir, I don't.
If I bring you all those pictures, if I beat you half to death, like that little child was beat, I bet you'd die too.
Sir, I did not beat my daughter, sir.
No?
I'm not that cruel to my children.
What are those bruises on your little child?
The thing is that I got a mom You can clearly see here. Doesn't know who did that. Yeah, it wasn't me. I didn't cause her death.
Melissa, my name is Victor Escalona. This is your chance to set it straight. Right now it looks like capital murder. Right now it looks like you're a cold-blooded killer. Now, are you a cold-blooded killer?
No, I'm not.
Or were you a frustrated mother who just took it out on her?
We knew somebody did it. We're trying to find out who did it. If it wasn't you, I don't think somebody crept in there at the middle of the night and went up to your child and specifically singled her out so he could bite her on the back.
Melissa, it happens. Okay? We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We all get upset. We already know what happened. We already know what happened.
After hours of questioning, she admitted that she had spanked Mariah before, but denied abusing her.
You better that one?
Yeah, because I guess we're going to be moving around, so.
Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Say one.
Okay.
Melissa.
Mm.
Okay. Today's date is 2/18/2007. It is 3 a.m. We are here at the Harlem Police Department. I am here with Melissa Lucio. My name is Victor Escalona, Detectives Rangers. I am also in this room is Officer Harlingen Police Detective Javier Villarreal. Lay her down and show me how you would spank her. Was it like one time or was it several times?
Several times.
Show me how. But show me the same force you would use. With your right or left hand?
Right hand.
Would you be standing up or sitting down?
Both.
How would you do it when you're sitting down? Show me how you would do it. I mean, the way you actually did it. Just get it over.
I just spanked her real hard on her back.
Well, do it real hard like you would do it. Like the way you would do it.
That's the way we do it. I mean, I wouldn't pound on her.
But,
Mm-hmm.
well, do it.
You think?
Was it harder?
No.
Because I don't do it hard.
Well, you're doing it on yourself. This is. I mean, I wasn't pounding on her or anything.
Show me exactly how you would do it like that.
Yes.
Okay. And this is just what? Spanking? Did you hit it with a stick?
Mm-hmm.
Did you use anything?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel when you see these pictures? What's going through your head?
I wish it was me that hurt.
Is there anything else you want to add? Okay. Listen, it's 3:15 a.m. and I will end the interview.
Although Lucio admitted that she had spanked her daughter in the past, she never admitted that she caused her injuries. However, after hours of intense questioning, she finally said, "I guess I did it, I'm responsible." One of Lucio's sons was also questioned by detectives right after Mariah's death. The officer asked the boy, "Did you see your sister fall down the stairs or did somebody tell you she fell?" The child answered, "No, I saw her fall." Melissa Lucio was arrested on February 18 in 2007, and charged with the capital murder of her daughter. During her trial, the recorded interviews with Lucio were described by the district attorney as a confession of guilt. The pathologist, Dr. Norma J. Farley, told the court that the child did not die from any fall downstairs, and her injuries were consistent with a death from blunt force trauma. That Maria had been beaten, and as a battered child. The emergency room doctor who attempted to revive Mariah, said he had not seen a case of child abuse worse than Mariah's in his 13-year career. He also said that Mariah was physically abused. But he also said that her death could have been caused by a fall or being hit with a strong force. One of the paramedics testified that when they arrived and entered the apartment, they found a small female child lying on her back in the middle of the floor. He said the child was not breathing and with no pulse. He observed that the mother of the child was distant, and not distressed, and her behavior was so far out of the ordinary that he put it into his report. He also testified that nobody was even within arm's reach of the child, or trying to hold her. He said nobody was doing anything to assist the child. Lucio's lawyers argued that Mariah's injuries were from falling down the stairs. The defense claimed that Lucio's psychological issues contributed to her admission of guilt. The judge would not allow Lucio's lawyers to call any expert witnesses to testify about the effects of abuse. The defense theorized that Lucio admitted to guilt because she was aggressively interrogated by two male officers for hours. However, prosecutors were allowed to use her confession as direct evidence of her guilt. Lucio's sister took the stand and testified that her sister only admitted to spanking her children. She also testified that Lucio never actually even disciplined her children in that way. Lucio was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death in 2008. Melissa Lucio would be the first Hispanic woman to be executed in Texas, if the execution is signed into order. She was sent to Gatesville Prison on Texas death row where she awaits her execution date. Lucio's husband, Robert Alvarez, claimed ignorance to his daughter's injuries. He was sentenced to 4 years for reckless injuries to a child for failing to seek medical care. Lucio was pregnant with twins when she was arrested. Her twins were born while incarcerated, and she was advised to give her children up for adoption, which she did. Lucio's oldest son, John, spoke with CNN reporters. He said, "We don't want our mother executed. We already lost our sister, and now to lose our mother for an accident is just horrible." He went on to say his mother was not perfect. He said she struggled with drug addiction, but he said she's a great mother, and she never laid a hand on any of us. He said all of his siblings are united with him in asking that their mother not be executed. He said growing up was hard. He said they had an impoverished childhood, but his mother did her best struggling to provide for him and his siblings. He said there were times their electricity and water was shut off for not paying the bills, or they had to depend on community charity for food. He went on to say that he feels his mother was not given the support she needed to properly take care of her children after Child Protective Services returned them back home. She stayed off drugs but didn't have a car or a long-term home. In 2011, Lucio's attorneys attempted an appeal, but it was denied. In 2019 her sentence was overturned by the Federal Appeals Court. However, that decision was overturned again and she remained on death row. Former Chief Medical Examiner of Kansas City, Missouri, forensic pathologist Dr. Thomas Young, reviewed Lucio's case and concluded that the pathologist, Dr. Farley, made the wrong conclusion. He said that in a similar case of Manuel Velez, he was convicted of murdering a 1-year-old child, and sentenced to death, but it was overturned after a more thorough investigation. In 2021 a legal brief was filed with the courts on Lucio's behalf. It consisted of experts on violence against women, legal experts, and 16 different organizations that pursue justice for women. The brief discussed that Lucio's behavior during her interrogations were the direct result of her prior trauma and abuse as a child. The brief also argued that the original judge's order to not allow expert testimony on the effects of trauma had deprived Lucio of the only way she had of explaining her self-incriminating statements, and that she was innocent of murdering her daughter. The Supreme Court denied her petition for review. In early 2022 Lucio's execution warrant was signed by Cameron County officials and her date of execution was slated for April 27 in 2022. She was to be executed by lethal injection. Lucio's lawyers petitioned for clemency. It would take the majority of the Board of Pardons and Paroles to recommend it, then Governor Greg Abbott would have to sign off on it. Her lawyers argued that the original medical examiner used junk science about the alleged bite marks on Mariah. The lawyers also claimed that Texas Ranger Escalon had it out for Lucio from the beginning. Escalon testified under oath that he knew Lucio was guilty from the moment he walked into the interview room. The lawyers said that the idea that a person can be found guilty by body language has been widely discredited. The lawyers also claimed that the district attorney's office withheld critical documents from the defense by the child welfare agency that support Lucio's claim that Mariah's health declined after falling downstairs. The district attorney's office also withheld an interview from defense with some of Lucio's other children, who corroborated Mariah's fall and her deteriorating health after the fall, and discounted abuse by their mother. Instead of providing sworn statements, prosecutors handed over summaries that omitted exculpatory information that could have changed the outcome of the trial. They went on to advise that the district attorney's office engaged in legal trickery to bolster their case against Lucio, and it wasn't surprising given the fact that the district attorney was trying to get re-elected, and had allegations of corruption against him. In 2014, District Attorney Armando Villalobos was sentenced to 13 years in federal prison for racketeering and extortion. According to court documents, he accepted more than $100,000 in bribes to fix cases from October 2006 through May 2012, including the time he prosecuted Lucio. Villalobos directly handled Lucio's prosecution, and used the victory from that case to run a successful re-election campaign. Several months later, after the trial, Villalobos hired Lucio's defense attorney as his assistant district attorney. Furthermore, the autopsy was conducted with the same two police officers who interrogated Lucio present. Experts have discussed that the medical examiner overlooked any signs of an accidental fall and immediately jumped to the same conclusion as the officers. Experts say that a child sustaining injury could have coagulation disorder, which causes extensive bruising after death. The lawyers claim that the autopsy was not a death investigation, but more of a procedure conducted to support the police's theory. Also, when paramedics arrived at the scene and Lucio told them her daughter had fallen down a steep flight of stairs, they were skeptical because the new apartment only had a few stairs out front. Her lawyers say this critical misunderstanding set in motion a devastating chain of events that caused tunnel vision. They said this led to investigators continually assuming the worst about Melissa without investigating or considering alternatives. A forensic pathologist based in Minnesota, Janice Offoven, reviewed Mariah's autopsy reports, said, "The investigation into Mariah's death appears to have been significantly prejudiced, not evidence-based, and without an adequate consideration of alternative issues." She went on to find that Mariah's injuries appear to be from a fall, and her death had nothing to do with intentional force. It was also found that Mariah had a medical disorder that caused bruising, and this was not brought up during the trial. Her lawyers argue that Lucio was sentenced to death for a murder that never happened, and credible science proves it. 5 of the jurors in her case also came forward in favor of clemency, or a reprieve due to the new evidence. One juror said, "I voted to sentence Melissa Lucio to death. I was wrong." Melissa Quintanilla, the foreperson on Lucio's jury, wrote in a declaration, "I was disheartened to learn that there was additional evidence that was not presented at trial. I believe that Ms. Lucio deserves a new trial, and for a new jury to hear this evidence. Knowing what I know now, I don't think she should be executed." A letter was sent to Governor Abbott and the Texas Board of Pardons and Parole, signed by all of Lucio's children, saying, "The death of our sister Mariah, and the prosecution of our parents tore our family apart. The wounds never fully healed. They probably never will." The petition for clemency came before the board 2 days before her execution date. In March of 2022, a letter was delivered to the Board of Pardons and Paroles and the Governor's office. The letter was signed by 83 members of the Texas House of Representatives, including both parties. The letter stated that it would be a miscarriage of justice if Lucio were to be executed. Vanessa Potion, Director of Special Litigation at the Innocence Project, a New York-based nonprofit that works to free innocent, told reporters, "We are on the verge of sending an innocent woman to an execution based on false and misleading medical evidence. It's egregious to be in a situation where we are days away from an execution and there was never any credible evidence to convict her." On April 25 in 2022, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals issued a stay of execution, and ordered the 138th Judicial District Court of Cameron County to consider new evidence for Lucio's defense in her daughter's death. Texas State Representative Jeff Leach, a Republican from Plano, was the first to give Lucio the news.
Howard.
Hey, Warden, this is State Representative Jeff Leach.
Okay, hold on just a second. Let me get closer. I think we lost signal. Hold on just a second. Hello?
Melissa.
Yes.
Hey, this is Jeff Leach.
Yes, sir.
How are you today?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good. Have you heard the news?
No, what?
You haven't heard the news yet?
No, what happened?
The Court of Criminal Appeals issued a stay of your execution for Wednesday.
Are you serious? Are you When did this happen?
We just got word about 15 minutes ago.
Oh my God! That is wonderful! Oh my God! What does that mean?
Well, it means you're going to wake up on Thursday morning, and
Thank you, God.
you're not making the trip to Huntsville on Wednesday, and the order was very strong in that it appears that you're gonna get a new trial at the very least.
Oh my goodness. That is so wonderful. Thank you so much. Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Lee.
Well, Melissa, I love you to death. There's a lot of really great people who've been working on this on your behalf, and just, I would say, millions who've been praying for you. You know that, and
Thank you.
it's been an honor to fight for you and believe so strongly in your cause. And of course, remember Mariah today, and I know you do as well. But this isn't the end, and we're going to continue to work together to make sure that that the right thing is done, and that hopefully ultimately you're free. That's the goal.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to come see you soon. Maybe later this week or next week I'll drop in and come see you.
All right, I'll be waiting for you.
Okay.
Thank you so
Love you, Melissa. Have a good day.
Love you too.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
I thank God for my life, Lucio said. I am grateful the court has given me the chance to live and prove my innocence. Mariah is in my heart today and always. I am grateful to have more days to be a mother to my children and a grandmother to my grandchildren. Lucio's case has drawn support from across the world. Those who support Lucio argue that the medical evidence clearly shows that Mariah's death was the direct result of an accident. They believe that her confession was coerced, and from a woman who just hours before lost her daughter to an accident, several hours of intense badgering, and all from a woman with a history of being abused. Law experts draw attention to the hostile interrogation tactics used in Lucio's case. They feel this is a systematic problem. Saul Cassin, a psychology professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, says, her case represents the tip of the iceberg. For every lucky one we catch, we discover there is some unknown number of false confessions still sitting in prison, because cases don't get scrutinized. He continued saying the police's coercive interrogation tactics are likely what led to Lucio's confession. At one point, after hours of accusations, she said the words, "I guess I did it." She was then handed a doll and instructed to hit it over and over on video. I can point to so many false confessions that begin with the words, "It looks like I did it. Maybe I did it. I guess I did it." He said that is not a language of memory. It's a language of inference. They are making the assumption that they did it because they're being told there's evidence. He said after hours of relentless badgering and given her state of mind, breaking down is not that surprising. Lucy Guanera, a psychiatry professor at the University of Virginia, studies false confessions. She said, anyone is going to feel stressed in the interrogation room, but for someone with PTSD it's ramped up to 1000. A woman who has experienced domestic violence is now trapped in a room with men who are intimidating. According to a 2022 analysis by the National Registry of Exonerations, there has been over 3,000 exonerated people. About 12% of those cases involved false confessions. More than 360 in the US were a direct result of DNA evidence. For many years, psychologists have attempted to figure out why people confess to crimes they didn't commit. After thoroughly investigating the issue, they believe the dominant American police interrogations with its focus on lies is the culprit. Saying things such as "we already know it's you" or "you'll get the needle for this if you don't tell us what happened," or using minimizing language like, "maybe it was an accident." Psychologists believe this sort of interrogation tactics push battered women into confessing. Melissa Lucio and her family are relieved and looking forward to the possibility of a new trial, and the chance to prove her innocence. Melissa Lucio undoubtedly had a troubled life. She was abused as a child and married as a child. She was also abused by her husbands. She was having one baby after another, a total of 14 children. It's no doubt she had a very hard and stressful life. Her 2-year-old daughter was rushed to the hospital, where the doctor and medical examiner both claimed the girl was badly abused, and some of her injuries were from weeks before. Lucio was found guilty of murdering and abusing her child, and sentenced to death. Later she received a stay of execution with the possibility of a new trial, and many declare her innocence. The facts in this case are staggering. It's likely the child did fall downstairs and receive injuries, however the child sustained very traumatic injuries and nobody attempted to take her to the doctor or to an emergency room. Even if Lucio is innocent of murder, she's definitely guilty of neglect at the least. Is it possible she feared Child Protective Services would take her children if she showed up at the hospital with an injured child? This case is troubling on all levels. May justice be served for Mariah. If her mother is innocent, hopefully she gets a new trial and can prove that. If she's guilty, then she needs to remain in prison for the rest of her natural life. May little Mariah rest in peace. That concludes this episode. Keep your eye out for the next volumes coming soon. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.
Want to help support the channel you love, and get something in return? Simply purchase some Elizabeth's Chronicles merch. We have coffee mugs, t-shirts, sweatshirts, cozy blankets, beach towels, phone covers and more. Use the coupon code EC10OFF4U and get 10% off your order. The link to order is in the description area below this video. Thanks for helping Elizabeth's Chronicles continue to make the videos you love.